This will be the last Python course in my Ultimate Python series, and today I'm going to be showing you methods, classes, init, and self. So here on our agenda, I have learning classes and instances, and init and self. And I include a little image of programming because programming is amazing, and programming is what we'll be doing. And as always, please subscribe. I always want this channel to grow. I have a lot of new content in store later on, and I just want more people to learn more about programming, and I appreciate any support that is given. And as promised, I included a silly little picture of myself. This time I decided to show my not so amazing skating abilities. I went skating with my girlfriend recently, and this is me trying to get help like a little man trying to get help skating. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. So classes and instances. So classes are used to add functionality to your programming through a series of code. So as you can see here, we have a variable called Animal Man, and I've created a class, Animal Man, printing I am the Animal Man. So don't ask why I used Animal Man. I just did. And you can see that a class is being called by the class keyword. When creating classes, we use Camelcase. So Camelcase is the correct jargon for the kind of formatting of words that we use. So for example, I included Animal Man, capital A, capital M. Sometimes when we write passcodes, we tend to do that. So my passcode, I'll tell you my passcode. Oh, just kidding. I won't tell you my passcode. But you can see that we use most Camelcase when we're writing a variable or we're creating a class. But you don't have to. You don't have to. We can create objects and add attributes to the class through declaration. So as you can see in my images, we can create several objects. So I have here attribute 1 is shark and attribute 2 is guy, a simple class attribute. And I can call that. So those are my two examples, and I want to mention here class methods must have an extra first parameter in the method, right? So you can see that we have a first parameter right here under our attribute, and if we have a method that takes no arguments, we still have one argument. Actually, I take that back. Our argument is over here. The def person self, this is our argument, right? It's our parameter that we're passing in, and this little comment on the side is saying that Python will automatically give you one argument that I like to think is invisible, but it's self. Self is our argument. So we start with one, and if we include more arguments, so self, comma, whatever that is, then we're adding more arguments. So if we go into our replit file and we type in the first example that we have, so let's work with our Animal Man method. So let's first create our variable. And let's go animal man var. So that's how I would declare my variable. And let's just do animal man. So our variable here is going to be a string. And let's create a class. So we use the class keyword, class, and you go animal man. And remember to always include a colon after your class declaration, because that will automatically indent your little cursor, and it will be the correct syntax, right? So Python programming, like any programming language, requires you to use the correct syntax, and if you don't include this, then your code isn't going to run. So let's do print, and let's use an F string here. So F with our quotes, and then there we can say I am the, and here we'll use curly brackets, and we'll go animal man variable. And let's finish this off by just declaring our animal man method. And already you can see here that the program isn't going to be working because of the correct syntax. So when I indent that, then it should be working. Let's see, anything else that I missed? I am the, I don't know why that's not very happy. Oh, see? Make sure you spell everything correctly. So when we run this, we get I am the Animal Man. So you may be thinking that this is a really long and unnecessary way to just print something, right? Print I am the Animal Man. It should be the same thing practically, but you can see that in this example we're using a variable. So we have our variable animal man. We're using a class called animal man, so too many animal men. And then we're doing print I am the, and we're using our f string to declare animal man. So we're dragging in this little string inside. And this is a great example of how a class would work. So I like to think of classes, I know I've talked about methods this way, but I like to think of classes like a big box. And inside a class, we include our little boxes. So our little boxes can include variables, methods, and all sorts of other little things into our program. And right here, there's not really much going on. So like naming a class is kind of unnecessary because of how small this program is. But that is our animal man example. So if I build on from that and I create an attribute, so let's get rid of this, and I create attribute 1, and let's call that shark. Let's create an attribute 2. Let's call that guy. So you can see here that this will be a simple class with 2 attributes. Our attribute 1 is shark and our attribute 2 is guy. And let's continue by creating a method. So we create methods through our def keyword, def, define, and let's just go person. Let's name this person, and our first argument is going to be self. Now, I'm going to get into this a little later in the video, but typically in Python, when we write an argument, self is our default keyword. I don't know why. I'm sure there's a better explanation somewhere out there on the internet, but that's essentially why we use our we just call it self. It's the default. You can call it anything you want, but self is typically how programmers would interpret that. So if we go self and then we go print, kind of the same thing. I am a, and let's just do comma, and then let's let's grab our self, so our first argument, and our attribute 1, right? And then let's just do the same thing here, but with our second attribute. Attribute 2. So you can see so far what we have is we have our class, we have our 2 attributes, so essentially I like to think of them like a color. Pick a color, green or purple. Green or purple, shark or guy. And then we want to go I am a shark or I am a guy. And how we would declare that is then we would go down here outside of our class, outside of our method, and we would go shark guy, at least this is what I'm going to call it, equals animal man. So shark guy is going to be our new variable, and we're setting that equal to our class. Get our class. That's essentially what we're saying here. Let's make a comment for that. Get our class. And then let's go print shark guy. So we're grabbing our class, shark guy dot attribute 1 shark guy dot person. So print shark guy with our first attribute, which should be shark. So fill in that blank, and then call shark guy dot person. So call this method inside of our class. We run that, we get shark. I am a shark. I am a guy. So you can see it's kind of doing 2 things at once. It's instantiating our object. It's instantiating our first attribute, and then it's putting the 2 of them together because we're calling this method. So those are classes. You know, I can show you a little quick example. I can call another class, and I can call this the print. Not all caps. The print. And that's I can put whatever I want inside. Def print print. I mean, I don't know. That's essentially how it would look like. You know, classes are above, so methods go into classes and variables can go into methods. So if you think about it like in that stepping stone, that's essentially how it should be. So let's move on in our Google slide. And this one's going to be an exciting one. I really like this one. So this is going to be our instance method. And attributes are pieces of data associated with each individual user, as I kind of mentioned. So you know, we have our colors, flavors of ice cream, we have any of these things. Those are our attributes. Anything that starts and ends with a double underscore should go at the beginning of the class. And that kind of follows along with the next thing I'll show you with the init method. But I'll show you well, you can see the init method right here. Instance variables are variables whose value is assigned inside a constructor or method with self. So essentially this is saying instance variables are assigned inside, the init method or whatever method we have. So that's just fancy jargon. Class variables are variables whose values are assigned in the class. Another fancy jargon, These variables are just defined inside here. So my example was, as you guys know from the guitar covers that I make, I'm also a guitarist. And recently I've been listening to a lot of Jimi Hendrix. And I'm sure some of you are freaking out. Jimi Hendrix is amazing. And I decided to dedicate a Python program to Jimi Hendrix here. So let's just run that in our replit file. So if we go here and we get rid of all of this, we're not dealing with any more animal men. And let's create a new class. And let's just do this Rockstar. And again, if you're following along and you don't want to do these examples, you are welcome to choose and name your classes or anything however you like. That is totally up to you. So let's use our init method. So this is going to be a special method that Python provides for us that we will use, and it essentially works as a collector. So I'll get more into that. That's going to be our third slide, but here we have our init method, self, name. So self is our first argument, and name is our second. And here we go, self.name, name equals name, equals name. So when I program or when I do anything math related or logical thinking related, I like to look for patterns. And a pattern I see is if we have our argument name, we set our first argument to our next argument, and we equal that to the name of the variable. So you can recognize these are all the same thing, and that should stay consistent throughout your programming. So that's going to be our init method. So let's do a sample method, and let's go def guitarist self. So we have our argument, print the best guitarist is, and this is objective. I'm not saying Hendrix is the best guitarist, but he definitely is one of the best. No argument there. So now we have our method, and let's just go G because I'm lazy. Rockstar. So let's grab our class and let's clean this up a little bit. We go Rockstar. Let's go Hendrix. And let's get that. So g.guitarist. So we're grabbing our method. And let's call it. So here we have our class. We have our init method. And we have our sample method. So our sample method is def guitarist. It's a print statement. And we're grabbing that variable from the top here. But we're setting our variable down here. So when we run that, the best guitarist is Hendrix. My favorite guitarist is Santana. So if I go like this, the best guitarist is Santana, or what's another good guitarist? Jack White, maybe. The best guitarist is Jack White, or I don't know. I don't want to diss anybody there. Let's think of one more. Wes Montgomery. I butchered that. Montgomery. I think whatever. I feel terrible. But there you go. So that's our method. And let's go back into our slides. So now we have our init and our self. So this is really the most important part of this lesson is these two methods. And it's a tricky topic, this init and this self, because this is really Python programming. This is past our basic variables and our basic methods. So here, classes in Python can have a special init method, which gets called every time you create an instance of the class. We call that instantiating. So, I'm a game developer, and in game developing, when we create an object into our scene, we call that instantiating, exactly like here, because Python and C#, the programming language for Unity, are both object-oriented, and that we use instantiating in object-oriented programming. The init is a constructor, which contains a collection of statements, instructions, that's what we would call them, that are executed at the time of the object creation. So execute means that's when it happens, right there. And self is an extra first parameter that must be created in the class method. If we have a method without an argument, so no self, then we still have one argument. As I mentioned before, we get a default argument by Python. So here's our example, and let me also mention, creating an object that is an instance of a class is called instantiating. I kind of mentioned that before, but you'll hear in the programming world when I'm instantiating an object, and essentially it's just creating it. So let's jump back in here and let us get rid of our code, and let's declare a new class. So I am a programmer, I am a musician, but I'm also an author. And this is I haven't really mentioned this that much on the channel. You know, I'm writing a book and I'm going to release content later on down the line along for authoring, but I just thought it'd be appropriate to mention that in this program. So let's call class author, and let's have our constructor, our init method. So as we did before, we create our init method. Let's create two arguments, self and author. So let's create an instance method, so an instance variable, I apologize. And let's do self.author equals author. Then again, remember the pattern. So we have author here as our argument, self.author equals author. Let's create another variable and go def author type, or who is the author, and I'll just use myself as an example, self type, and we will go self.type equals type. So now we have two methods. We have our init method and we have our author type method. So let's retrieve an instance variable, and let's get our def get author type. So this one I named specifically so that way we're getting this variable, and let's just declare self return self.type. So we're going to this return keyword is going to return whatever self is going to be. And let's do that for another instance variable. So if I go def genre underscore type self genre, and I go self.genre, so this we've seen before, same pattern. So we're creating two so far we have four methods, but we're creating two methods that are going to return two different things. And we do def get genre type, it's called a self, and here we will do return self.genre. So let's write our what's known as our driver's code. So what's going to happen with all of this information that we've given into this class, let's declare person equals author. And I was playing around with this, and I noticed that when I declare author, the program will work when I have quotes in the parentheses, and I could put whatever I want to, but if I don't include the quotes, then somehow the program won't work. So we have our quotes with whatever's in there. We go person.author type, and let's just do my name, Andre Slaughter. Let's do it correctly with the accent. There you go. That's nice. And let's print person.get author type. So here we have our methods. So we have our init method, which is our author method. So you can see that's our init method. And we have our author type and our author type.self. And that's the code that we're going to be using right here. So when I run that, I should get my name. Now let's try author genre. Let's do science fiction. Actually, let's do this. Let's do a new one. So let's copy this. Let's put it down here. Let's make sure this is all right. Author type, and my novel is a science fiction fantasy, and we are going to print get genre type. So this is going to grab our second method. And there's an issue. We might have typed something in. Let's see what we did wrong. So we have author, genre. I think I called that wrong. It's genre type, I think. Genre type, science fiction. Yep, that's what we did wrong. We get our genre type. So let's do that. Perfect. So this is our init and our self. And as I mentioned before, this is going to be the last Python video in my Ultimate course. And I will be releasing some content soon announcing the new course that I have planned. I am not going to announce it now. I'm going to leave you in suspense. But I hope that this video was helpful. Leave a like, subscribe. Please give me that support. And include any questions that you have that I didn't get answered, and I'll make sure to get back to you. Thank you.